Hello, beautiful souls, and welcome back or welcome to my podcast, Rewire to Inspire. I am your host, Jessie Brown, and I am very excited to be jumping on the microphone with you all for episode number 186. I hope you guys enjoyed my latest episode, 185, where I talked about 7 ways for you to prioritize your mental health this holiday season. I've shared on here before that I am the lead champion for a local youth mental health group. And today we had one of our meetings. And I always love meeting with this committee because not only are they so hardworking and amazing individuals, I also just love being in a room with others that are passionate about mental health and specifically talking about youth's mental health. And it just always fills my cup. And it just dawned on me in concluding the meeting to just really reiterate the importance of being mindful of your stress around the holidays. I cannot stress enough the importance of tuning in and checking with yourself. Today, upon recording today's episode, it is December 13th, so today's episode is coming out tomorrow, December 14th. So that gives us roughly 11 days, almost 2 weeks before Christmas. Check in with yourself. Notice how you're feeling. Notice what's going on. If you're stressed about whatever it is, just take a moment to be present and come back to your body and just take a couple deep breaths. I promise you, everything is going to be okay. Nothing is worth getting into that big of a tither about to the point that it is affecting your mental health. So I just wanted to start today's episode with that today because I felt it again on my heart, the importance of just reminding us of that because I've had to be proactive in reminding myself of that as well. Today's episode is one that I thought of when I was at the gym today. I was walking on the treadmill and I'm like, all right, what am I going to talk about today? What do I want to talk about? What do I want to share? And whenever I ask myself that question, I typically just stop and I notice what comes to my mind. I don't force it. I don't judge it. I just notice what comes up. And I kept coming back to the same story over and over and over again. And I was like, I don't think I ever actually have shared that story publicly because I think for a while I was a little bit embarrassed by it. But I think I'm at a point now where I think it's actually really important to talk about. So if you see me continue to look down if you're watching video, I put notes on my phone as, points of reference. I don't think I'll need it, but I do like to have it just as like little things that I thought of when I was on the treadmill that I wanted to touch on. So if you see me kind of touching for my phone, I am not texting while I am podcasting. I am looking at my notes. Okay, let's go back to 2021. 2021 was the year that I moved back to New Brunswick from Alberta. And upon moving back to New Brunswick, so for those of you that don't know, I grew up in New Brunswick. After graduating high school, I moved to Alberta to get my education. So I studied social work and I lived in Alberta for 6 years. I developed a lot of my career there. And then around 2020, I should know my own story. In 2021, I had gotten out of a 3-year relationship. My lease was up at my apartment. My parents were talking about moving back to the East Coast. And I'm like, you know what? Something in me is just telling me that that's where I'm supposed to be. And I had come home and visited New Brunswick. I think it was in May. It was in May because my nephew was born. And I was home visiting for a month. And I remember the whole time I was here, I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. I don't know why. There was just something in me saying, you're supposed to move back home, at least for a little while, and see what happens. So fast forward, I ended up moving back to New Brunswick in July of 2021. And prior to this, about 3 weeks before, I had quit my job on a whim. I was past the point of burnout. I was at the point where I was waking up in the mornings, having severe anxiety attacks. I couldn't get myself to go to work. I was just very, very overwhelmed with life and everything that was happening. I ended up going on stress leave for a period of time, and then I just decided, you know what, I need to take a step back from my job. So I had left my job kind of on a whim. Upon moving to New Brunswick, I didn't actually have a plan. I didn't have a plan of what I was going to do for work. how I was going to make an income. I knew I had a place to live, which I was very grateful for, but I didn't know much more than that. I decided to start looking at jobs, and I started focusing on the same area of work that I was doing in Alberta. So looking as becoming a counselor again, which in hindsight, looking back, I should not have done, but we'll get into that. And I found this job, or I didn't find a job. There was an agency here that I had applied to. Let me change what I'm saying. There's an agency here that I was interested in working with. I sent them an email and I said, hey, told them a bit about my story, a bit about my background. And I said, if you ever have any opportunities, please let me know. I'm moving back to the East Coast. Less than 24 hours later, they got back to me and said, hey, would you like to have an interview? We actually have an open position for a counselor in our women's shelter. I was like, perfect. That sounds fantastic. That's the background exactly that I had come from, was working in a sexual assault healing center type of environment. And so this was very similar trauma-informed environment that I was used to working in. And I'm like, perfect. Everything is lining up. The stars are aligning. Everything is great. So I jump on that interview and it goes fantastic. The ladies that I was talking to, and this was virtually because I was still in Alberta at the time when I did this, were so kind, were so nice, so welcoming, and they ended up offering me a full-time position on the spot. And I was like, oh baby, yes, this is happening. So basically, I ended up doing the drive from Alberta to New Brunswick. My nanny joined me for the drive, which was amazing. And we did it in three and a half days roughly. I booked it home. I just needed to be home. At this time, I was on a severe heightened autopilot state. I was overwhelmed. I was freaking out. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know if I was making the right decision, but I was just going with the flow, trusting and taking this leap of faith that this is what I was supposed to do, even though the whole time I was completely overwhelmed, dissociated, and very, very anxious. So I moved home, and for a little bit of time went by, and I just settled in. I got used to being here. And then it came time for my first day at this job. So I went in for the job, and I remember on this day, basically, I sat in an office. It's your first day, you go through the paperwork, you go through the motions. I got a tour of the facility. I was meeting everybody. They showed me my brand new office in the basement, which was ginormous. It was the biggest office in the whole building. There was a couch in there, a huge brand new desk. It was beautiful. There was like a back patio door off of this thing. It was amazing. But the point of my story and why I'm sharing this is the whole time that I was there, something in me was like, this isn't it. As much as I was overwhelmed in the process of moving home and, packing and doing that drive and relocating myself, there was never a part of me that was like, this isn't what you're supposed to be doing. If anything, it was completely different. It was saying, yes, I know it's uncomfortable, but you need to do this. And so just like, keep going. But as soon as I pulled into the driveway of this location, of this job, I was like, I'm going to be sick. I don't feel right. I felt dizzy. I felt nauseous. Something in me was just like, you're not supposed to be here. Like, this isn't it. And I was like, I probably just have first day jitters. It's got to be okay. Let's just keep pushing through. And so everybody was so kind and so welcoming and amazing, honestly. But I just didn't feel right. It didn't feel right to me. And so I went home that night completely overwhelmed and torn of what to do. Because I'm like, on one hand, yes, I can just walk away and I can keep looking for work. But I had just got this job, and everything in me was like, that is such an a-hole thing to do. Like, don't make this agency suffer because you're feeling anxious, and that's really selfish if you were to just go for one job or one day and then leave them high and dry, and you need to just keep pushing through. You need to do this. Like, it pays good. You've got this job. Like, just convincing myself of all the reasons why I should stay, even though intuitively my whole body and nervous system was like, no. And in hindsight, it had nothing to do with this job. It was the fact that I wasn't ready to go into that kind of work again. I was completely in an overwhelmed state, but I kept neglecting my intuition that was yelling at me very loud and clear, Jessie, this isn't what you're supposed to be doing right now. And so I tossed and turned the whole night of what I was going to do. I remember calling my mom, really upset, of just saying, I don't think I can do this. And anybody that knows me well or has been tuning in for a while, basically I'm the type of person that when I say I'm going to do something, I do it and I follow through. And there's a part of me that's like, you committed to this. You signed up for this. You need to at least try and follow through. But there was just such a loud part of my intuition that was like, girl, no. And so I went in the next day, and even on the drive in, I remember I was like, I still don't know. Like, I don't know. And I'm like, no, I need to step away. And I walked into the building, and my manager specifically wasn't there, but the other executive director was there. And she said like, good morning, like your office is ready, like very excited. And I'm like, can we chat? And I told her how I was feeling. And I said, listen, this has nothing to do with anybody here. This is just how I'm feeling. I'm very overwhelmed. I shouldn't have jumped into this position as fast as I did. I just need some time to gather myself and to do some healing and to settle in. I appreciate the offer and the opportunity from the bottom of my heart, but just right now isn't going to work, and I'm going to need to step away. Fortunately, because this angel of a woman had such a strong background in social work and in just human conditioning and understanding, she calmed me down and just kept reiterating to me how proud she was that I chose me, and how most people would have been afraid of the consequences of that or the unknown of that and would have just stayed. And she said, also thank you, because I was unethically equipped to work with clients in the headspace and in the vibe that I was in. I wasn't going to be able to give them the best care possible, and I knew that. And so the way that she just framed it showed my brain like, amazing, okay, that's what I needed. And then I instantly just felt like, okay, I can take a deep breath. It's okay. Everything's going to be okay. And so the reason I share that story with you of the fact that I lasted one day at a job isn't to just tell my story, but it's the importance of honoring your intuition at some place in time in your life. And if there's a part of your intuition communicating with you, something doesn't feel right, something isn't right, something's not aligning, and maybe you've been in your job for 5 years and now you're starting to feel this feeling. The thing about our intuition, and when we feel those gut feelings, they don't go away. They get worse and they get louder. And then we often get to a place where we don't have a choice but to step away. And we're like, oh dang, I wish I would have done this sooner. My message for you today listening is to assess for yourself if there's anywhere in your life where your intuition has been maybe whispering, has been communicating with you, and are you neglecting it? Because again, that will continue to perpetuate and get louder and get heavier because there's something in you that is not feeling right about something. Our intuition does not speak to us just to speak to us. It speaks to us because it knows our higher good, our higher purpose, what's in alignment for us, what our trajectory is. And if we are beginning to veer off the path that is not right for us, it's going to yell at you to try to realign you. But the thing is it's our decision if we want to listen to that. And it's our responsibility to listen to that so that we can optimize a better life. If I had not stepped away from that position, I then a couple months later wouldn't have found the job that I'm in now that I love. It wouldn't have happened because I just wouldn't have been seeking the opportunity. You never know what lies on the other side of making a decision. And sometimes it can be very hard, very overwhelming to make those decisions, especially if on the other side of that is the unknown. Because on the other side of that, I'm like, well, now I don't have an income. I couldn't apply for EI because I had quit. I was at my max stress, but I'm like, you know what? My parents are here and they're telling me that they got my back. I'm not alone. I will figure it out and it's going to be okay. And sometimes we need to lean into that trust and take a leap so that we can come out stronger on the other side. But when we settle and we play it safe and we play it comfortably, we're not allowing ourselves the opportunity to see what could be. We are so good at focusing on just safety, in the moment, present day, and not thinking of the bigger picture ahead. It's okay to say no to things and to back out and to change your mind if something is no longer aligning with you. That is how humans are supposed to work. We're supposed to grow and change and evolve. But when we continue to put ourselves in these containers and we trap ourselves and we don't allow ourselves the opportunity to explore and expand beyond that and trust that it could potentially turn out better than we could have ever imagined, we're going to keep reiterating to our brain and showing it the same evidence that what it's thinking is correct. And so one of the biggest points that I keep reading on what I wrote down is, and I put it in bold letters, you have to do what's best for you. In that moment, I was thinking from the lens of, I don't want to burden this company. I don't want to break relationships. I don't want to let anybody down. Those clients need someone to talk to because there was no counselors in the roles at that time. And I just kept thinking, other people focused. And I wasn't thinking about me. And as soon as I made that decision, I'm like, yep, you made the right decision. Don't be afraid to put yourself first and do what's best for you, because what's best for you is what's best for other people. Because if you are not your best self, others around you are going to feel that. If you're not your best self, you're not going to show up in the best way. And so sometimes it feels selfish and it feels icky and it feels wrong and it feels scary, but doing what's best for you is the right decision. The last thing that I had wrote on here, you don't owe anybody anything, especially at the expense of your own mental health. Jobs specifically and relationships are the two areas that I think that this is most common. We don't want to leave a relationship or leave a job because we're scared of the unknown, or it's been safe for an extended period of time. When something's all we know and it's safe, it's really hard to step away because the unknown, our brain doesn't like unpredictability. And it tries to keep us safe by telling us all the reasons why we should stay. It likes that repetitiveness of knowing what's next, of knowing what to anticipate. And if we are taking a leap of faith onto something, our brain doesn't like that. But the more that we do that and we take leaps of faith and we get out of our comfort zone, our brain begins to see that fear and the unknown is actually a really amazing thing. And great things happen there and growth can happen there. And so that is my message for you all today. I felt so pulled to share that story in the hopes that it's relatable to even one person. When I first started thinking about the story, I'm like, it's interesting that I didn't share this, but I think that I had a lot of shame and guilt around that situation. And I'm like, you know what? There's no sense of feeling shame and guilt about it anymore. It is what it is. It's almost 3 years in the past. It doesn't matter anymore. I handled it ethically and in the right way. The people on the other side of it were also very receptive and loving and caring and supportive. And it just shows, and it showed me that doing what's best for you is sometimes the best option, but it doesn't mean that it's not going to be scary, and it doesn't mean it's not going to be overwhelming, but it also doesn't mean that it's not the right decision. So where in your life is your intuition communicating with you, and are you listening to it? Are you honoring it? The more that we honor and listen to our intuition, we're just forming a better relationship with ourselves. We're beginning to trust ourselves. And when we listen and we see the messages shine through, the more we'll begin to see and trust ourselves. And there's no better person in the world to trust and have a better relationship with than your loving, beautiful self. So I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I know that I really, really enjoyed this topic, and it's something that I am very, very passionate about as someone who has definitely taken many leaps in my life, and they have almost always turned out better than I could have ever imagined. I just cannot reiterate this message enough that yes, it's scary, yes, it's overwhelming, but yes, it is worth it, and you got it more than you might be giving yourself credit for. So thank you guys so much. If you enjoyed today's episode and you think it would be helpful for someone, I encourage you to share it with them. If you can like, subscribe, and just follow along on this journey. I am just so grateful for each and every one of you, and I look forward to chatting with you all next week.